Why don't companies like Playtomic, if you don't know who they are, they're an app for you to find matches for paddle, pickleball, and tennis. So why don't companies like that have better systems for pairing you up with similar skilled level people? Like, I understand everyone has to start somewhere, but why is their starting metric so poor when, you could do a requirement for a tournament where you play against 16 other people, and then where you rank, it would put you in the average spot for that. Like, if you rank in the middle, or at the bottom if you're at the bottom, etc. Like, there are so many better ways to do it. But the reality is, for a company, it's not necessary. It's irritating as a user, but the complexity of adding it in isn't worth it for the reduction in usefulness otherwise of the app. Otherwise they would do it, obviously. So the first thing that comes to mind, clearly, if there was a function on the app to filter out people who have less than 20 games, then all of a sudden you're boycotting new people getting in, and like, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place that you can't get your first 20 games if you're getting filtered out, right? And stuff like this. And what this would cause mostly is volatility issues, or not volatility, volume issues, or a lack of volatility. Because there are companies like, take companies like Trading 212 for an example, or any trading platforms. They actually have a partnership with other companies who have funds to make sure that there is liquidity in the market, not volatility, sorry, liquidity in the market, so that there's someone out there just making trades, so that when you post a trade, someone else is on the other side to buy it. Liquidity is super important for a system to work. Imagine you sign up to play a game and there's no one on the other side, you're going to be queuing forever, right? All of a sudden it's not a very useful app. And so by adding these filters in place, they decrease liquidity, and so they decrease user interaction. And then you've also got massive scalability issues. So for my own company, we get this all the time, of people asking us, why don't you do these other subjects? Why don't you do different ages? Why don't you do different countries? There's so much more you could be doing. And they're right. Without a question, they're right. We could, and we could make more money off of the people we currently have. But in doing so, we will create friction for our ability to scale. Adding in a different age bracket, now all of a sudden, the 5 tutors that we have who are full-time, amongst them, we've got 120 classes a week that that students can join, right? And so finding timetable slots for these students is doable based on everyone's availability. It's not perfect, but it's really good, right? We very, very rarely struggle to find a spot for someone. But now all of a sudden, if you add a new age category or a new subject, and you keep the current system you have in place and you spread it evenly, you've now gone from 120 possible classes down to 60, which still sounds like a lot. But if they are 80%, 90% full, now all of a sudden it's not so many. And if you only test run it with one person, right, well, now there's only 20 slots. You see where I'm going with this? It ends up causing massive bottlenecks really quickly, not to mention the drastic changes that this has on your ability to scale and your ability to deliver a specific service. Because at scale, nothing is simple. The simplest of systems, the simplest of tasks get very complex because scale introduces complexity. It's just a fundamental law of what happens when you scale businesses. And so adding in these extra layers of friction makes it so difficult for companies to scale that they often get stuck. And so then to scale past a point, they then have to slash features and do things like what happened with Elon and Twitter/X, where you have to slash 80% of the staff or remove 80% of your features so that you can focus on the one that actually makes the money, the one that actually serves the problem people pay for, etc., so that you can actually focus on making the thing bigger and better. And so although it feels really short-sighted, for a company to do something like that, it's actually kind of a necessity in order for them to create the thing that you actually use. And so, yes, you can get mad about it. And like today I had an unfortunate situation where I played against 3 people, pretty much whose first game it was. And it didn't make sense because their ratings were completely wrong. But I did have a game. And without the app, I probably wouldn't have been able to have one. And that's the reality as to why I continue to use the app, even though it's not perfect. Right? And if your core offer or service is the most valuable thing you do, like in this case, actually connecting people to be able to play games, then people will use it. Right? In the long run, you are going to have to fix lots of these issues. Unless you want customers to churn. But remember, churn is normal for a business. Not everyone's going to stay with you forever. And so, depending on what you're trying to do with your business, what service you're trying to provide, that has to stay front and center. And you can't get distracted by the suggestions of the masses. Right? Because everyone's got different ideas. So if that is you, if you're feeling that pressure, here's your permission, stay on track, keep things simple, and focus on solving the problem people actually have and are willing to pay for. Great. P.S. If you do work for Playtomic, please switch to an ELO system. In terms of rating, it makes a lot more sense. It's comparable then to loads of other industries. But on the whole, the app is a pain in the bum, but it gets the job done. So, gonna keep using it. Peace.